eModels.co.uk. Go make something awesome.
Hello folks, Festa here from eModels, and welcome to Workbench Live with me, Festa. Yes folks, yes, I am back after a little bit of an absence the last time out, folks, but there you go. And I am carrying on with this big old 1/16 scale Sherman tank from our good friend Andy over at Andy Hobby headquarters, and I'm building it for the folks over at eModels. And what a stunning bit of kit it is, I must admit. I've got Big Bertha, she's affectionately known just off shot, so I'm going to bring her on shot. Just so that you can see how she's coming along, because you might have missed the last one. So she's a bit big, isn't she? Look at that. Wow, isn't it, eh? Excuse my knee there. Don't want to see that. There. So she's a big old girl, and she's had a bit of the old paint on there. And then if you remembered, we was doing her mug last time with the big old decals and all of that gubbins going on, folks, with the big old eyes and the mouth and all of that. So that's where we are with that. It's been satin varnished, so we're going to be doing some chipping on in a few weeks' time. We'll start. But tonight I am going to be doing a little bit of the stowage for you. So I've got some bits and bobs just off shot that we're going to be doing a bit of painty pops on to some of this. We'll start that with some base colours and a few of these dudes getting their fleshes down. So we'll be doing them. So I'll be bringing them in the shot in a minute. But first things first, I just want to have a scooty pop through the chat so that we can see who we've got in. So let's have a looky-loo. We got Jeff Light there saying evening, Cole. Hello, Jeff. Big hugs and love to you and Maggie. Hope you're both doing all right and keeping well. Next up, we've got Athol McNichol saying good evening, Jeff, Maggie, Colin and panel. Hello, Athol. How you doing, mate? Hope you're keeping well. The legend that is Panzer Cat is in. Yeah, he's sitting there now fanning himself going, I'm a legend. Yes, mate. He says, good evening, Festa Hugs. How you doing, Pans? Nice to see you with, mate. Lord PJ of Lewis is in, says, good evening, Colin, and he's saying hello to Panzer. Athol says, meow putty tap. Big hugs to Maggie as well. There. PJ saying evening to Maggie and Jeff Light. Panzer saying hello to Athol. Jeff saying hello to Panzer. Excuse me. Ron Hatton is it, says hi Colin and all in chat. Hello Ron, how you doing mate? Lovely to see you. Sophie Loves RC is in, says hi everyone. Hello Sophie, lovely to see you in my love. If I'd say hello to Sophie and Ron, and everyone said hello to me as well. There you go folks, so that's the chat done. There is a link in the description below for this little build. At the top there, so there's a linkykins up there. I know they're waiting for more to come in stock folks, so bear in mind that they may well be landing hopefully pretty shortly because a few people are after these tanks. Right, let's have a think where I got to. I primed my big old stowage. I primed me log me logs even, me gun, so I got all of those bits to come in. I started painting me bit of wood. Now well, this little thing here goes across the front between the wheel arches, and then I'm going to have stowage going up the front face of the tank there, but that's had a little bit of a wood effect. What I need to also do is I need to go through now and get all me lights and things like that I've got in little bags off the kit. I now need to get them all on sprue clips ready to start having a prime later, because I want to put some stuff in the spray booth and start getting all these ready because they're all going to get added to the tank. Then I've got a bag of 3D printed stuff like buckets and things like that. I'm just going to have a pick through and see if there's anything else I need to add to the tank. What have we got off shop there? We got one of the dudes up there that came with the kit. He's ready for primer. And then I've got Telly Savalas and Clint Eastwood that I'm going to be printing this week. Big Joe... and Clint Eastwood, I can't remember the name now. God, what's wrong with my memory? So I got them to paint as well. I've got Turk, Oddball, and a couple of the lookouts at the front there. They're going to get started, so we can have a bit of that going on as well. So we're at that stage where it will be backwards and forwards, flitting between bits and bobs just to start getting some base colours down tonight. And then I can then position the figures in the tank and then start detailing everything up. That's where I need to go with it. So I've got a bit of stuff that's going to get some dry brushing on there. So let's bring them in and get a bit of them. I did one of the bags, or started one of the bags. I just started doing a bit of dry brushing on there, different shades of green and stuff like that. Then I can come back and put the washes on that and get them started. So that's what we're going to be doing. So don't forget, folks, the usual question applies. What's in the belly? What's on the bench? What is your beverage of choice? Biscuits. And what is your baboon's name? Because we all need a baboon. Mine is Boris, my baboon. Would that be buffoon? See what I did there. So mine is Boris the baboon. Me balloon is purple. I've got some little nibbles just to the side. I've got a cup of tea, a cup of orange, and obviously on me bench I've got all this tank shenanigans going on. So that's what I've got. Let's just put all of them on there, and then we can start thinking about what colours we're going to be putting on. So first things first, I want to bring Oddball in. Let's start putting a base dry brush of skin down on him. So let's get me wet palette of goodness on camera. It'll be quite a cluttered bench tonight by the look of it. It's got quite a bit of stuff on there. My bad. So we've got a slightly moistened wet palette. We're doing light browns and fleshes tonight, so we'll have a bit of that. Anders Ericsson is in saying hello, friends. Kelly, of course it was Jeff. Kelly Zeros, isn't it? Yeah, I'm having a bit of a derpy moment. Yeah, clues in the film's name, Cole. Kelly Heroes, yeah. Because the theme music was sung by the Mike Curb congregation, if I remember rightly. Burning Bridges, so yeah. Right, let's have a looky pops. Get me brush in. I'm using fine or small dry brush from God Hand tonight to do this. Little swirly motions. Don't paint his hand flesh, Cole, because that's a glove on there, mate. Just giving myself the heads up there. And yeah, we can start putting a little bit of skin on Oddball, so just a teeny smidge of paint. Like that. Get me a bit of rag. Let's pop that there. Stuff the instructions out of the way for the moment. That little bit of tissue. So yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this show tonight. I must admit, it's just nice to get back to doing a little bit of work on the big old tankykins. Yeah, just nice. So all I've got to start doing is just working my way under his neck. Just start swirling a little bit of skin colouring. I don't want to go too bad. I just want to rub it on, so to speak. And yeah, get that going. Perhaps that palette's a little bit too wet there, Carl. Let's just put a bit of paint on there instead for a minute. Do it that way. Okay, where do we want to go? Go across his forehead. Just swirl a little bit across there and work our way around. Because obviously with his beard, Donald Sutherland could grow quite a fierce old beard from memory. And yeah, so we'll have a bit of flesh under it, because hopefully that'll give the illusion that you're looking through the beard at his skin. I just want to smooch a bit of this all over. I'll work it down to his chin level. And multiple coats on this, so this ain't the final result. This is just laying something down, because I want to see the contrast between flesh and shade on him. And then obviously come up underneath his neck now. Just start losing it under his throat. And we'll just backwards and forwards between these, just so that we can get a bit of colour on him. Because sometimes if you put too thick a coat on these, you can end up dragging the paint off that you've already put on. We don't want to be doing that. A little bit on my knuckle. And it'll start bringing this all alive, because with these little figures just poking out and about around the tank, it's just going to give it a little bit of character, I think. I've also got the German fella to print out. Do you remember the Tiger Commander that was there? The one, I think he had a scar there. Was it down the right side or left side of his face? Choice of two, Cole. I've got him to print out as well. Now, from memory, I'm going to rewatch the film probably today. I think he was quite a bit shorter than Clint and Telly Savalas, so got him to print as well. Might as well put him in the little scene around the tank. And basically, the tank is going to have, do you remember the market square or whatever just outside the bank in the film? It's going to be that. It's just going to be the road texture. I can't do all the scene because obviously this is 16th scale and poor old eModels would have nowhere to put it on. So it's just going to be literally the road underneath the tank there, just enough so that I could get the figures around the tank as if they're having a little bit of a chin wag. So that's what I'm hoping to do. So you'll have Oddball and these fellas looking out. You'll then have Kelly, Big Joe, and the German chap, Klaus, was it, or something? I don't know what his name was, but so they'll be having their little conflab, possibly before the doors get blown off, where Oddball shoots the Sherman at them. So that's what we're hoping to achieve. Just something simple, not overdone. Again, like I say, I'll be rewatching the film now. I know this Sherman wasn't the one used in the film. I know that. It's a facsimile of different Sherman types that were in various films that I've watched that I enjoyed. I just want to try to generalise type of thing across them films, just cobble a few bits together and see what we come up with for it, because, yeah, it's just one of them iconic films. This is Turk, the fez-wearing fella that was also in the film. And again, I just need to re-watch it just so that I can look at their skin tones, because I think Oddball from memory was quite pale in his skin complexion, so I will need to pale him down, but I don't want to overdo it, but I don't want to underdo it, if that makes sense. Just go around the nape of Sir Turk's neck there, putting a little bit more colour on him. Like so. Just to see whether we can start bringing out a bit of detail in his lugholes. A little bit of colour across the top there, or the side of his canister, just to bring that up. Like so. And then obviously we've got his hair then to blend into it. He's got a tash going on as well there. Good old traditional 1970s moustache he's got going on in the back. Got a big old tash actually. Try not to rub that off, Cole. Let's put a bit more on there. Let's find a decent corner of the wet palette. There you go. What have we got? We have got Sophie's bench. Cracking on with my poncho Tommy. Tubby, sorry, she says his dark chocolate, drink his milk. PJ Belly is fish, nice bit of cod. Chips and mushy peas. Bench back on the scratch built 1/250th scale USS Defiant. Nice, mate. Looking forward to seeing that. Beverage is the Hog Goblin Gold. Ooh, nice. Athol Belly is minced beef, pie and veggies with coffee. Bench is half stripped down. Baboon is Fred. Biscuits are Lou Cinnamon. Oh, nice. Audible book, A Star is Born. Good shout. So we can have book added to the list. There you go. Sophie sneaks into PJ's kitchen. Oh, look, fish and chips, nom nom. I'll distract him, Sophie. You nick the plate, yeah? Here, PJ, look behind you, mate. Look behind you. It's a big spider. Yeah, it's not working, is it, folks? But yeah, distraction techniques work. But the thing is, Sophie, what we got to realise is we've got to fight off the Panzer Cat, because if anyone's going to grab that bowl of grub before us two, it's going to be him, because he'll be like them. Do you remember them cartoons where they stood there and you see the sword and you're going through the floor around the character? That would be Panzer, and then you just see a little puff of smoke as PJ disappears through the hole. Yeah, just imagine that. Philip Prime is in, saying hello. Hello, Philip, how are you? He says, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Colin. Hello, Philip. Nice to see you, mate. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. Nice to see you in, mate. Philip does the primetime show, folks, on a Tuesday over on these Facebook and YouTube. Coincidentally, primetime modelling. And, yeah, nice little crew there doing their thing. So we've darkened Turk's skin up a little bit. I want to keep the shadow just under there a little, so he can sit there looking purposeful. Let's just pop them out from under there. Sling him down there for a minute. Where's the other chap? Does he need any more flesh on him? Let's have a look. He kens under the light. Yeah, he could do with a bit more there. What else have we got going on? PJ said hello to Philip. Anderson, since you're doing a Sherman from a mix of films, could there be a space for a Mr. B Pit from Fury on there anywhere? That's a good shout, actually. That's not bad. So I've got the logs going on the side from Fury. I've got them to go on there. I'll have a look, see if I can source a, what's his name file, mate? STL file of Brad Pitt and get him on there. Yeah, I'll have a look for that later, mate. Good shout, Anders. Why not, indeed? That would be a nice little egg, actually, because it would be like, why is he there? Yeah. Yeah, good shout. Yeah, I can't really do the generic figure to look like him because he doesn't really look like Brad. But I might be able to get a headshot, you know, a Brad Pitt head to go on that figure. That might work. We'll have a look. I think it's different uniform. We'll have a look. See what we can find, mate. I will endeavour to try to source a figure for you, mate. Why not, indeed? Let's come down into his uniform now. Come up under his neck. Now this is a base skin tone that is going down, so it's quite a vibrant, heavy pigment in this colour. But then I can come back and go over this with lighter and lighter skin tones just to get a bit of variation on there. And then obviously there'll be a few washes going on the faces and stuff like that. But get a nice, deep, rich base skin tone down for me is quite important, because at this stage, with these figures, it's just going to distinguish the colours from them, if that makes sense for me. A bit like the one I've got that is already based. It just lets me see head, torso, you know, in base colours, and then I can put them in the tank with a dry fit, and then I can start coming back then and maybe lightening one of the shoulders, leading edges of the uniform, making the material look a bit worn. Same with the helmet. You know, perhaps add something like 20 smokes to the side of the helmet in a little net or something like that. So that's the whole idea of basing these at this stage, is just to give me an idea of how the colours start to work with each other. And then, like I say, I can look at tonal variations. Ooh, big words. And go with that. So we'll lose that out of there and sling him over there for a minute. We're done with that one. So let's pop that flesh tone out of the way and that up there. Quickly clean my brush out. Rod Hatton says belly is a chicken and veg. Bench is, what's that? FM Wildcat. Bevy is coffee. Nice. Stefan Last says, can't stay long tonight due to my eyelids not wanting to stay open. Just by to give a thumbs up. Much appreciated. We'll be on for about an hour or so tonight, folks. Just a little quick recap on what I'm doing, etc., etc. So I'll do, like I say, we'll see how the show goes, see how it flows and how I am, and that'll determine how long I can go for, folks, okay? So do bear with me at the moment. The schedule's a little bit up and down at the moment. Right, I have got some uniform colour. Now, where did I put that? Light colour that I was using. So let's have a look at what we've got. Where is it? Is it that one? The uniform? I think it was as the base colour. There you go. Not a bad attempt, cut straight in there with the right one. Let's see if we've got an older. Oh, look at that. Made the measure. So I'll give that a shaky pops. Phil East is in, says evening all. Crystal is in, says belly, meat feast, a sandwich, ham, a bacon, corned beef, pastrami. Oh, I love a bit of pastrami. Chicken, a sausage, tomato, and rocket with English moutarde. Gets in. Bench, work, laptop, was working late. Oh, bless you, mate. Have a breather. Crystal. Bevy is a pint of lemonade. Oh, nice. It's a big old belchy pops you're going to have. He says, yeah, you got to have War Daddy on the dio. Yes. Ron, I've read. Jeff says, just check. Strangely, the German tank commander wasn't named. Yeah, I can't honestly remember what, you know, I don't know whether they just came up with a bit of a, how can we say, humorous name for him themselves. I can't honestly remember. But I need to give the film a rewatch. And obviously, if I can, because I've got this character that's going to go around, but he's in a generic uniform, and if I remember rightly, Brad Pitt wore a jacket type uniform with the jacket, the trews, and all of that lot. The sort of, yeah. So we'll see what we can come up with, because why not? Right, let's have a looky pops and see how we can do a bit of uniform. So let's see what we can get. Bit of paint on there. off the lid, slap that in there, pop my lid back on because I don't want to get stuff on there or in the paint. Right. Now, Donald Sutherland, if I remember rightly, wore a leather jacket in the film. I've got a picture on my phone, so I'll refer to that in a minute. Actually, I'll put my clamp back under that so I can spin him around easier, not get paint all over me fingers. Watching the big telly tonight, but I have the chat on my phone, so I get a bit disorientated. Oh, bless you. Phillips belly was spag bowl. Oh, nice. Bench Ravel 1/4 scale space shuttle and booster set. I feel your pain. Yeah. Still a good kit, though, I must admit. I know we all mock them older kits, but they were fun. I certainly think they were. I've got one over there. I thoroughly enjoyed building it. I was on about the Apollo Saturn V the other night, and I was thinking about repurchasing one, completely redoing it, because I've got a load of STL files that are highly detailed components that go into different stages to beef up the engines and that and give them more detail. And it would be interesting to see the one that was built many years ago compared to techniques we've all picked up over the years. I don't know whether any of you do that. Now and then you see a kit and you think, I remember building that a few years back. And you go and grab it just to see how you've evolved as a builder. And it's quite interesting because obviously back then you didn't have all of the pigments and weathering stuff that you get now. And plus your own build techniques improve over time. Well, here's hoping. And it is nice just to see the difference in what work you can put out now compared to what you did then. I'm just swirling the paint on, just gently caressing the model, just so that I can start building up a bit of green, and then around where the flesh tone is on the collar there, I can go darker and darker as it builds up, just to cover that flesh colour. So, and I like this stage because it's just now beginning where I can drop these figures in the turret and start seeing how the vision is going. Obviously I want to get the other figures all printed so that I can lay it out on the bench, take some measurements of the tank with the figures positioned reasonably where I want them, so then I can work out the footprint for the base that's going to go on, because I think it needs a base but not too busy, if that makes sense, because obviously with a scale it would end up super massive, and this has got to go underneath the counter eModels and fit under there. So I am quite restricted for a footprint where I can put it, unless it ends up on a shelf next to poor old Ted's sub, because yeah, there are big bills and poor old Pete mate runs out of space to put them on. So there you go. So we can just start bringing this together, and then leading edges like these ones that go close to the flesh, I'll come back with a brush later on and I can finesse them. For the moment, it's just getting a bit of green down just so that we can see the direction it's going to go. Easy peasy, innit, folks? Well, it is until you twitch and then you put paint on something you don't want to, but we won't talk about it. Jeff says, good evening to everyone that I've missed. Philip says, yes, that's why I'm doing the shuttle now. I had the Airfix Moonraker back in the day. Oh, good shout. Yes. Yeah, the Moonraker set. Yeah. See how much they're going for on the auction sites, Philip. They're holding a good price, them kits. Yeah, the Moonraker. Yeah, I can imagine the decal set on that now would be a bit aged, wouldn't it? You'd probably have to redo a set, but yeah, forgot about that. Of course, you've got the Russian variant as well. Is it the Buran? the Russian version. Wasn't there one where it might have been an Antonov or something like that with one of them on its back? But yeah, would be interesting to, like you say, have the American, the Russian, and perhaps the Moonraker version if you're a shuttle nut. I'd imagine that would be fun to do. But it's the prices of them now, you know, they're going for silly money, and I certainly couldn't afford to pay that for them. So it's just a thing, isn't it? Are any of you model collectors in the chat? You know, do you have certain kits in your stash that you'll never build because you're a bit of a collector and you know that they're going to hold a value, you know, and that's almost your little nest egg where you know you can sell that on, perhaps finance your hobby in retirement a little bit. I don't know, you know, there are people out there that don't build, they just collect certain kits because they know they're sought after. So if that's your thing, and that's what brings you enjoyment, happy days, isn't it? That's what it's all about at the end of the day, different facets of the hobby. I mean, me personally, you know, I've got a couple of the 24th scale Mad Max interceptors in me stash there. You know, I've seen that they can go for ridiculous money on the auction sites, but I still want to build them because I think, why not? You know, they are there to be built. And yeah, you know, a nice little 24 scale Mad Max vignette. Why not? Works for me. So that's the beginnings of his helmet getting painted up there. Just come around there and do a little bit on there. Then we'll finesse and finagle these and detail them up as we get more into doing the figure. Have you some of him now? What colour was his strap? Strap's a bit khaki-ish by the look of that, but that's what we're after. Come down the front there and do that lapel. Just try and put a little bit of colour in there. And then we can keep coming back at these now with different coats, different depths of colour. Start working our way just into the shoulders and that sort of thing, and then looking at different ways of highlighting and lowlighting the material. So he's beginning to get it. Like I say, it's his base colours. So you can go and sit there and dry out, mate. Let's have a look at the next one. Now, I can't remember what Turk wore uniform-wise, so I'll do a few of the packs instead. We'll leave Turk for now. I don't really want to search through my phone whilst I'm live, because, yeah, that's not on, is it? And again, just lightly putting light coats on these, just to start getting a little bit of colour in them, so that when I look at them, they're just not, you know, black and white bags. I can just start seeing how they're going to go. And then once they've dried, I then go over, dig the tank out, put it on the bench, and I lay all the stowage over it so that I can begin to see what it's going to look like. And it's that same old thing. You know, you might think certain parts of the stowage will work in certain areas, and then you put it on the model and you're like, actually, I prefer that over there. So I think that's important at this stage, that I don't get too caught up in final positioning of this stuff, because folks like Panzer that do a lot of armour probably dry fit their stowage quite often and then start moving it around thinking, well, you know, they might have used that today and repacked the stowage at the end of the day and put it somewhere else. So that's why I've not put none of the tools on the tank yet, because I've got that big chunk of stowage that goes on the rump. And obviously under there, you're going to have hammers and spanners that on the model go in certain brackets. But with this big old chunk of stowage on the rump, you're going to lose all of that. So would they have repacked them type of tools that would sit under this, like the big wrench, the big hammer and that? Would they have repacked that and had it sort of sat just in front of it there for ease of access, you know. So, yeah. So that's what I'll be thinking. I'm looking at all of that side of the build, and I find it interesting because I sit there and I do a late night Google search, and I'm looking at how stuff was sat on them, and it's quite interesting how different scenarios, and some of the tanks I've seen, you can barely see the tank itself under the amount of stowage that it's got on it. And I find that interesting because obviously the scenarios that led to that must have been quite, yeah, they must have been quite deep into a country or a theatre, and had to take the maximum amount of stuff with them. Would it have hindered them in their use of the vehicle? I wouldn't have thought so, because, you know, the tanks are quite a heavy vehicle, so I suppose it had its uses. You know, it's like the logs. You know, I instinctively thought, oh yeah, it's, you know, if they get stuck, they throw the logs down and drive over them. But also it was a way of boosting the side armour from some articles I've seen, and it's like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, because, yeah, it just goes to show you. And that was only from Fury. When I watched that and I saw all the logs on the side of it, I thought, why are they there? So, yeah, quite an interesting way of doing it. I built a mail tank many years ago. Well, I say many years ago, it was the anniversary of World War One. I think it was the 100th anniversary. And I sat and done that, and that had the rails going over the top of it and some logs in there and that. And I found that an interesting little build to do, because something about them mail tanks, I think it's the shape, they just look a little bit steampunky, don't they? And I think it might have been League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the film with Sean Connery. And I'm sure at the beginning of that, you had a mail tank cluttering through buildings and things like that. And I remember seeing that film and thinking, cool, that's an interesting looking tank now. I must have to try and get a kit of one. And then I did it for the anniversary of World War One. And I will do another one of those, because I think they can be modified and steampunked a little bit and put into a little scenario. And I kind of leaning towards doing that opening scene from that film as just a teensy-wincy little vignette, you know, the damaged wall, the rubble over the front edge of the tank, that type of thing. And just bring it into that environment and see whether it works. So it's just a little idea going around in my brain at the moment. So it may come to fruition at some point. So it just brings that type of armour that is probably from a bygone era and forgotten about, just brings it back alive in that type of scenario, and it works for me. See how much of this green paint I can get on my thumb and finger. Yeah, clue is, Cole should have put a glove on and should have kept these on their sticks, but there you go. I make the mistake so that you don't have to. We're just getting a little bit of baggage going on. They'll get detailed up, because then a couple of layers in, I shall then texture them by just putting a little bit of cloth and just going over it, just to give it a little bit of texture. Got this big old thing here as well. Looks like a tarp of some kind. But this is a nice little set. This, and I couldn't resist grabbing it, to be quite honest with you. So I just thought it would make the build. Just start bringing that down. I put a bit of base green on it for now, but I shall go over it with khakis and things like that and just vary it up, and then dry brush some of the folds and bring out some of the texture. But these have got a real crisp finish to them with the texture and the rope weave and things like that. And I want to try and keep that, not paint over it, so to speak, and kill the texture by too thick a layer of paint. So I mean, this has had a little bit of thinner put in it just to thin it down a little bit. So it's almost like a blend going on, blend stroke dry brush, whatever you want to call it. A bly brush, there you go. It's just enough, just to put a little bit of colour in it so that it just talks to me when I set the tank up. And what I'll do is after this stream, I'll set the tank up on the bench with the characters and things like that in their relative places. And I'll take a couple of pictures and put it in the eModels group, scale model addict and addicts, should I say. And I'll also post it up in my group just so that you can see the direction it's at the moment. And, you know, you might look at it and go, oh, cool. You thought of trying that, adding that, bunging that in there, or perhaps moving that from that position further back because... And it'll be, yeah, actually, it's all feedback, isn't it? It's constructive feedback at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. And that's why I did that little bit of wood there, because I could add stowage bags and packs to the front and pack them up there in a few wooden cases and, you know, ammo boxes around the place and that, because it is in theatre, it is doing its thing, and that's what they would have done. Tells a bit of a story, doesn't it? That's all I'm trying to do, is just not categorise it or confine it to one thing. It's just a generic idea or set of ideas. And there's people that are going to be true armour nuts or go, I think you'll find that wasn't on that one. Well, it's not that type of build. It's not photorealistic or recreated a particular thing. If it was, then obviously I would not be putting Brad Pitt next to Clint Eastwood next to Telly Savalas, would I? So it's working for me. Still don't know how far deep to go with the weathering yet. I haven't decided. I don't want to muddy it up too much. It's almost come through a few fields into an urban environment type thing. So it's... Yeah, I don't want to overdo the weathering. I want it to look subtle. This is why, again, I want to rewatch the film and just look at Oddball Sherman, rewatch Fury, look at Brad Pitt's Sherman, and then try and do an amalgamation, almost like an in-betweeny between those two, I think, will work for me. Also, I'm going to rewatch Band of Brothers, because why not? It's Band of Brothers and it's epic television. If you've not watched that, go and give it a watch, folks. That and The Pacific. Two really, really good box sets. And I got put onto them by Panzer, who was in the Zoom one night. And he's like, have you watched these, Carl? Yeah. And I hadn't. And I went out and bought the sets, you know. And, oh, it's beautifully made. It really is. And it's very eye-opening when you watch them sort of... binge watch them sort of series, because it puts you in that scenario, doesn't it, where you sit and you think about what these poor fellas, you know, lads and lassies went through during the war years for their country. It really does bring it home to you. Certainly did to me. It really was, I thought, beautifully done and tastefully done. So just put a little bit more across the top there, let that start seeping into a few places. Just really slap that in there like that. Because this will dry off, and it's only going to deposit quite a fine layer. But I want a bit of variation between bits as well, where certain parts of the top might be a bit more than others. Where the pack has grown, it might be that it was half the size of that, so you got two lighter bits and a richer bit in the middle that hasn't caught the sun as much. So let's have a quick looky, kids, at the chat and see what's going on in there, because I've ignored you for a little bit. Okie dokie, we got the Bobbins in saying hello. Hello, Bobbins, how are you, my friend? Philip Spagbowl, James is in, evening Colin, and all in chat. Hello James, how you doing, mate? Lovely to see you. Bill, Jeff is saying good evening to everyone I missed. Bobbin's Belly, Vegetable Tikka Masala. The bench is a 1/350th Weezer, lacking my mojo, and the baboon is called Alphonse. Oh, nice. Nice name for the baboon there, mate. Everyone say hello to Jeff. Jeff says a suggestion for the Sherman. How about a plain dirt track scene? It's a good shout, mate. He said hello to JC. Crystal says, if I remember rightly, Turk wore standard US Army T-shirt and bomber jacket. It was just the fez that was different from the other tankers. Thanks for that feedback, Crystal. Muchly appreciated. Anders says, whether tools are remaining under the stowage or placed on other places for easier access must have been up to its importance for the daily maintenance, or if it's seldom used, I guess. Probably right, because they're not going to need a track spanner every day, are they, and a big lump hammer. So, yeah, I might just have them poking out underneath so that you can see they're there. Fox is in, evening squiggles, hugs to all in chat, and our delightful host. What are you after? Jeff says, some of Workshops and Forge World's tanks, you can certainly see the design origins. Exactly, mate. Exactly that. James is saying hello to the Fox, as is Anders. Bobbin says, I expect they wouldn't need the tools unless the vehicle was parked up somewhere. Probably wouldn't want to be using big spanners while being shot at by a tiger. Good shout, mate. I'll put them in their original places. Drop the stowage over it. Jeff says, I've never seen Band of Brothers, although it's something I've always wanted to watch. Honestly, Jeff, you won't be disappointed, mate. It's quite poignant in places, I must admit. I mean, I hadn't seen it. I had seen adverts for it. And like I say, I got chatting to Panzer in the Zoom one night, and he mentioned it. And I said, I must get round to grabbing a copy. He said, mate, he said, grab it off the Fleabay. He said, you've only got to get a pre-owned copy. He said, whilst you're at it, he said, get the Pacific as well. He said, they are two really, really good series. He said, you won't be disappointed. So, like I say, I went and got them, but I sat down and I binged watched them. And honestly, oh, mate, it was so well made and thoughtfully made. And it was like, yeah, I really got into it. And I've watched them both several times now. And yeah, if that's your thing, go and watch them. They really are. I think once you've watched them, you'll appreciate that, yeah, it is really tastefully done. Right, what have we got? We've got a bit of Bala brand. So we'll have some of the boxes with a bit of Bala. We'll have then some that'll have a Zandri dust base. And then maybe one or two that'll have a Tau Light ochre base. That's just the base colour. Then you've got different shades that will go over, and one will be wildwood and the other one will be a bit of snakebite leather. So, yeah, just to try and give perhaps an underlying tonal variation in the wood. So, Crystal, I'm going to be getting my wood out in a sec, mate. Just have a quick swig of drink. Billy says, I loved Band of Brothers, but I couldn't get into Pacific. The Pacific is a slightly more challenging watch, mate, I must admit. And I was pre-warned by Panzer that it is a little bit more difficult to get into that one. But I persevered, and that's why I re-watched it, just to try to force myself to get beyond a couple of episodes, because it was a little bit slow on the uptake, the storyline. And yeah, it was basically trying to be Band of Brothers on Walter. And it's like the two different programs. And yeah. Ooh, what we got there? Panzer says he highly recommended it. Crystal says so many young actors got their break off Band of Brothers. Yes. Anders says also, don't forget to watch Saving Private Ryan whilst you're at it. Now, the opening scene in that movie, I think, is the most realistic or epic bit of opening filming I've seen, you know, where they're in the landing craft about to land, and then it just takes off, that film, with that scene. And oh, it's one of them, you just sit there and it's, you're trying to put yourself in the mind of a 19 or 20-year-old soldier that is in the landing craft, packed like sardines, and suddenly that ramp lowers and all hell breaks loose. And I just think it's an iconic piece of film. I really do. And it really opens your eyes to what everyone went through in that scenario. And yeah, I find it very moving, very poignant piece of filming. And yeah, it just gets you thinking, doesn't it? So yeah, if you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, go and give it a watch. Yeah, it can be a little bit wishy-washy in places with the storyline, but there are certain scenes in that film that you can't unsee, and it just, you sit there and you're watching it, but you're also thinking what it must have been like. How did earth did they survive it and come out the other side with any semblance of normality, you know? And it gets you thinking, folks. Certainly did me. And I like them sort of films that are thought-provoking. You sit there, don't you? I mean, I did it with some of the Vietnam films, you know, that were done. And you sit there and you try to envisage what that must have been like, day-to-day existence out there. And yeah, gets you thinking. Makes you come away with perhaps, especially if you've not served, which I haven't, you come away with a very profound sense of appreciation for anyone that has served their country, no matter who they fight for, who their country is, what their allegiance is. It gives you a tremendous amount of respect for anyone that signs up to put their life on their line for king, queen, president, or whatever, for their country. And I take the hat off to them, all of them, because, yeah, very profound, some of these films and documentaries you see. And if you see them, look out for them, give them a watch. You've got nothing to lose. Do any of you that are war film or documentary based, you know, do you have favourites? You know, we've mentioned Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan. Are there others out there that you think that we may take to? You know, different films like Kelly's Heroes, Fury, things like that. Because it's an interesting genre. It really is. Because we all have certain films that we know, but there are also many, many obscure films out there. Perhaps not everyone does know about. So we'll have a bit of that. So there's another bit of packing case done. So he can have a bit of towel. That's going to be a green. Forgot that one was there, Cole. That one can be a towel. That one can be a Xandri. They can be Valor. Is that right? Yeah, towel and Xandri left. So yeah, there you go. So let's put that with that. And that with them ones. That way I'll remember what ones are what. It's Festa's. The SEAL team says, Athol, their movies are very good. Oh, nice one, mate. Absolutely. Get in there. Philly says Generation Kill was brilliant. Crystal says it's been said some D-Day veterans had to leave the cinema when they first saw the opening sequence, as it brought back memories, as it was so realistic. This is the thing, Crystal. It really did bring it home, didn't it, with its realism? And I think it's one of the best bits of war filming I've ever seen. The Bobbin says the original Das Boot was amazing as well. I must confess, I've not seen it, mate, and I often get told that I've missed a bit of cinematic excellence, and I must go and watch it. So yeah, I'm now sitting here with my head held in shame because I haven't seen it. Yeah, shame on you, Festa. I can hear you all saying it. Call yourself an armour buff. I'm not an armour buff. I'm an armour newbie. That's how I see myself. Yeah, but I do find it quite a really quite an interesting genre, I must admit. I'm quite new to the armour scene, and the more I do it, the more I get an appreciation. And you go off on Google hunts. I don't know whether you folks do this, but I certainly do. And I'll be doing, say, for instance, this build, and I suddenly want to start finding out anything and everything Sherman. I go on these little late night jaunts on Google and try to find out all these different bits of information just to help me understand the engineering or you know, and how these things were put together. But also simple things like, how did they wear in the field? You know, what parts did all the mud start sticking to before it stuck to anything else? You know, would they all have a similar pattern of dirt deposits on them? How did the crew get in? You know, you'd have wear marks across the top of the tank hole where they'd all been clattering over it with their boots, you know. So for me, that's interesting because that's important, because, you know, if that's how they egress the tank, then, you know, you're not going to have your wear marks in the wrong place, are you? See, that sort of thing I wouldn't notice unless I've seen it and done a bit of research. Others that have been doing this genre a lot longer, they'll know that off by heart because they've been on a tank, or they've seen how others have got around their vehicles, and they know. That's an interesting part of doing this and this hobby. You know, I listen to PJ quite a bit when he's doing one of his MFH kits. He goes off on like a complete research scenario where he'll get as much photographic evidence of the vehicle, how it looks, what scene or scenario he's in, and then he looks at how the car would have worn and aged and gathered up bits of detritus in its journey, and that makes a difference. You know, it's prior preparation and planning at the end of the day. Plan your work, folks, because it can make a huge difference to the end result. And that's what I'm beginning to learn off of the more regular builders of certain genres. You know, I pick up on that. You know, they say, oh, you might want to try this site, or you might want to have a look at this book, or, you know, there's a weathering book you might find useful, being that you're now doing this technique. And without that information being passed to you, you're not going to find out, are you? Big thanks to people that do that and reach out. It's nice. Bridge Too Far is another one that's been mentioned. Cross of Iron with James Coburn is well worth a watch. One of my favourite films set in World War II, says Crystal, Too Late the Hero, starring Cliff Robinson, Michael Caine and Denholm Elliott, was set in Pacific Theatre. Absolutely. I was up late recently, and the Guns of Navarone was on the telly box, you know, and I just sat there watching it, you know, and I just sit there, you know, all the old films like Colditz, The Great Escape, little things like that where you can see characters that were portrayed, but also perhaps the motorcycles that they were riding and different vehicles, different Willis Jeeps that were in and out of scenes. Gives you a perspective of how some of the background vehicles were brought into play. And I find that useful, to be honest with you, because it gives you an idea of what these vehicles did and how they did it. And again, you can get the old support vehicles from these movies, and you might come up with a completely different scenario to put them in. You know, I've got one in the stash, and it's going to end up being a dystopian vehicle stroke mobile home for someone that's in that post-apocalyptic world with a nomadic existence. And that's what it's going to end up as. And it's just a World War II vehicle that I'm going to take into a further world. Why not? You know, it's probably got kept on a farm after the war and got found by a wandering nomad, and they've cobbled it back together because the engineering would have been a lot more simplistic back then. No ECUs and things like that to worry about. And, you know, they got it going, and it's wandering the deserts of the nomadic. Yeah, you know the one. And I find that stimulating, trying to put vehicles like that in a totally different scenario than probably the kit manufacturer intended. But that's what sparks me interest and keeps me motivated, that type of thing. So why not? It's nice to see the support vehicles being done in builds, because a lot of people, you know, they'll do the generic Tiger, the generic Willis Jeep and things like that. You don't see a lot of the little support trucks and vehicles in them, or staff cars and things like that, because they all serve the purpose at the end of the day. Few figures and a staff car, you've got yourself a little vignette, haven't you? You know, it's that easy. Me and Panzer have got one. He kindly sent me a figure and a shell. And we had seen this build online from our good friend Uncle Nightshift. He had a couple of greebles, and he just put them together and come up with his little vignette. And we both had watched the new release video, and we were sat in the Zoom just drooling over it. And we're like, yeah, we so want to learn to do that. And so, yeah, we've still got that to do. So that's another one that'll be popping up at some point in the future, is just getting that little build started, because it's an interesting thing that you could just do with a figure. Then you could put that in a little bombed out building or whatever and create your own little mini vignette out of a few very small, unobtrusive components. What else have we got going on? Guru says to Bobbins, the original full series was phenomenal. It certainly was. The tension where the running silent and you hear all the creaks and popping rivets. Also, the theme tune was banger. Yeah, because I'm sure it's you that I've heard talking about it, and Vincent was a fan of it as well. And it's one of those that I keep meaning to do the lookings at. Ron Hatton says a bridge too far. Good shout. Felice says, I might have to clamber my fat backside into the loft to get my Generation Kill DVDs tomorrow. Not watched it in years. And then he says, yeah, he's got to do, repeated the comment there. Ron says, We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson. Not seen that either. But I'm going through a stage at the moment where I'm Googling old war movies, you know, from back in the day. Because when I was a kid, you know, you've got to realise it was only 20 years after the war that I was born. So a lot of these war movies were still big thing on telly and big releases that were still being made. And I got this thing one night. It was only because I had rewatched Guns of Navarone. I went on a bit of a Google search for old war films like Tora, Tora, Tora and things like that. And yeah, you know, Bridge Over the River Kwai, you know, them sort of films where you can just sit and watch them and just get a take for different things that might help you in your work. You know, if you're sitting there and you're trying to recreate a Japanese POW camp or something, and you want to look at the buildings and how they were, it's things like that that you get to see that you might have forgotten. But it all helps with your builds, and that's where I'm at the moment, because I'm moving more into vignette type builds now, where I want to have little bits of buildings or background stuff going on where the model is there, but it's just a little bit of storytelling with it. And I've kind of gotten back into that style, and it's a direction that I want to move into. So I'm going to start rewatching a lot of this stuff. Bobby says Tora Tora was only on the TV at the weekend, was it? Oh, wow. They make good little films, didn't they, at the end of the day? You know, some of them weren't great, but some of them are iconic films. Who remembers the films with the Dirty Dozen? Was it Lee Marvin, Telly Savalas, back in the day? You know, and it was off they go. I think Skint Fleecewood was in one of them as well, wasn't he? Or a couple of them. So, yeah. He is my eldest son's favourite actor and director, Clint Eastwood. When he did his degree in film at university, he went off on a complete tangent with Clint Eastwood, and he did his dissertation on his work. And, yeah, so huge fan. When you go in his room, his shelf of films is so heavily Clint Eastwood. It's unbelievable. And obviously his directing style, he picked up on and he liked it. And yeah. And it's unusual, like I say, because, you know, he's, 30 now, my eldest boy, but his film tastes and that are of our generation. It's quite interesting. You know, my youngest is a bit like that with his music. You know, he covets my vinyl collection because it's all sort of that generation rock, glam rock, heavy rock, all kinds of weird stuff, concept albums and all of that stuff. And Cal's got his eye on it, he says, because it's just like, yeah, it's on vinyl. It's not on CD, Dad. It's raw. He said, and yeah, so. He's like, yeah, when you're gone, he says, that's all in my cabinet. He said, I'm having that lot. So, subtle, good lad. So, yeah, I want all of it, Dad. Not some of it, all of it. That's his thing. Whereas Lex is more movies, my sort of movie collection and DVDs and old VHS collections and things like that. He's like, yeah, you got some stuff in there that I like. And, yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. What have we got going on? Anders says, yeah, there's some really good Finnish World War II films, i.e. Beyond the Front Line, Battle for Finland. Of course, yes. Jeff says, what's the difference between a vignette and a diorama size? 9 times out of 10, a vignette is very compact, normally just about an inch or so beyond the build model dimensions. You know, it could be something simple like a little corner of a field with, I don't know, a small tree, the tank, and one figure. It's, you know, coaster size type, compact. Whereas a diorama is a full blown, you know, buildings, the fences, you know, big scene basically. That's my interpretation. I could be totally wrong, but yeah. I'm sure the guru will come up with a full-blown descriptive difference because he'll know. Yeah, I tend to say anything bigger than coaster size is going to be a diorama, but the complexity of it, you know, if you're just, like, say, you know, coaster size, put that vehicle on a base, bit of grass and a bit of gravel, vignette. Buildings, pipes, lines, cables, crows, pigeons, bloke on a bike, woman selling onions, all of that. It's going to be more of a diorama type thing, I think, anyway. But what do I know? I know nothing about anything and anything about nothing. They're all going to be green, so we'll just pop them there. So we've now got Xandri dust done. That can go back in there. What's that? That's a bit of tail light ochre. Now, that's really quite bright. Oh, that's sad. Crystal says just James Earl Jones has passed away at the age of 93. What an epic voice he had, that very deep, raspy voice. Bobbin says, of course, eModels have a wide range of military vehicles, including support vehicles. They do, Bobbins. They do, mate. And I've got my eye on one, Ted. I think, was it Ted or was it Fox? We did a What's in Store a couple of weeks back. It certainly wasn't mine. And this truck popped up and I just looked at it. I think it was around about 24 quid, something like that. I think it might have been Fox's. And it just spoke to me. And I said to him, I must remember to go in and rewatch it and get the link for that. I said, because it's just something about it just spoke to me. And I saw it being part of a scene I want to do with another vehicle. And it's like, yeah, that'll work. So I must get that bolt and put in the stash ready because, yeah, it shouldn't work. But I've got a feeling it will. Right, this tail light ochre is a bit bright. It might burn your retinas a little bit. But I think, well, I'm hoping that it'll work with a bit of snake bite over the top. That's what I'm hoping. If it don't, then I'll just repaint it. It's that simple. That's all you got to remember with this. You know, you might sit there and you might do these and you might think, oh, yeah, that's not working for me. Just repaint it. But these are all at the stage at the moment, what I'm doing, which is all the base colours of everything, where it gets a little bit cartoony. And you've got to just sit there and accept it and know that you've got all your shades and all of that lot to do. And if you can get over that and through that stage, good for you. I struggle with it. I'll sit there and look at these later and I'll hate on them. It's what I do. And I do struggle with this stage. And I think the guru does as well, you know, when we do our live stuff, we'll both talk quite openly. And it's like, yeah, the model's at that horrible, too much makeup for television stage. It's a bit like a Boots makeup counter assistant. You know the one. We've all seen her. You go in there with your missus and this Doris comes along and she's got every shade of every makeup line applied to one side of her face. And it looks a little bit fake, doesn't it? You know what I mean? And that's this stage. And I always try to think of that and think, yeah, it's a bit makeup assistant. But if you can get over it, get through it, it'll come together. And I'm deliberately not doing the dark areas with colour because once the shade goes over it, the shade is the colour I'm interested in, not the underlying colour. The only reason I'm doing these is it gives a different shade of lightness to the wood underneath the layer. Underneath the layer. Yeah, sorry, I went there. That's all I'm interested in at the moment. Some are going to be done with wildwood. A couple will be done with the darker snakebite leather, just for a little bit of variety. Especially, like you say, if some have been on the sunny side of the tank more than others, and yeah, they might have got a little bit bleached. Yeah. And then, of course, once all the layers are done, you've got all the filters that can go over this and washes, so it'll all tone it down. All I'm trying to do is perhaps different woods from different areas that they've coupled together to make these cases out of if they didn't have them issued. You know, they might have knocked an old barn down, nicked all the doors off of it and cobbled up a few wooden cases for all of their stuff that they're packing on their tank because they didn't have a box for it. You know, so some of it might be the colour of someone's old barn door for all I know. I don't know. I don't know whether these cases were standard issue or whether some of them were gathered from stuff that they had found in derelict buildings and workshops and stuff like that on farms. They must have at some point, you know, they must have had bits on the vehicle where, you know, especially across the front of the Shermans, you know, it might have been someone's floorboards from their burnt out house. I don't know. I'd like to think that stuff was repurposed and scavenged because I think that's what most people would do out in the field. You would scavenge for bits that were going to be of use for you and your crew, you know. I certainly couldn't imagine soldiers back then going past a field full of cows, starving, hungry, and walking past without perhaps taking one of the Ermintrudes with them for a bit of the old beef dinner. You know, I could imagine that went on. Or was that forbidden? I don't know. Is that something that would be frowned upon in the military? I would have thought that they could. You never know. I've got a motorbike and sidecar. It's a Festa model. And it's these two Russian fellas on a motorbike and sidecar. And one of them, the guy in the sidecar, not the guy riding, has got a full-blown pig in his hands in the sidecar poking out. So they've obviously been riding late at night and come across somewhere and he's snaffled a bit of the old bulky to go with him. What have we got? Panzer says it was the ISM SDKFZ 247. Absolutely. Guru says the ugly face. Exactly. Crystal says remembers Fox doing the vehicle, the staff vehicle. Yeah, certainly was. He also says to Jeff, a diorama tells maybe multiple stories, whereas a vignette is typically one story, and much more intimate and smaller in focus. Exactly. Compact and, yeah. Yeah, one's whispering Bob on the old grey whistle test. Hello, let's have a bit of jazz. That's the vignette. And then if you want a bit of Metallica, AC/DC in a rock concert, that's the big diorama, because it's a bit, yeah, loud and proud. Whereas a vignette is intimate venue, isn't it? Ronnie Scott's nightclub with a bit of Jeff Beck going in the background, you know that. Jeff Beck, what a great guitarist. Sad loss. Anyway, I'm rambling already. But yeah, one of my guitar heroes is Jeff Beck. Right, let's get a little bit more of that on there. Just scoot round. But I'll try one of these with a bit of shade before we go, just to see whether it's working. You hear me then go off and cry, it's because it didn't work. But I've done this technique before on wooden crates and that, and got on away with it. Did it on my Rogel Dawn, if I remember rightly, on the Frolic. Did a couple of the cases like that. And believe it or not, the undercoat or the underlying coat for that is Ballor Brown. You know, and it looked brighter than a bright thing, but it's the contrast stroke shade going over it that just gives you that wood grain effect. My Boot Hill Express that I did years and years ago, and it's when Fox and Tony first came across me, this was, Tony kept saying about the wood colour, and that was, if I remember rightly, to me a buff. And there was about 9 different layers of various dark washes that went over it that brought out the wood effect. And then I went in and done all the grain on it by hand. And he said, I would not have thought that you had such a light colour under that. I said, yeah, it's just there. I said, but it's the shading that made it disappear into the background, so to speak. But you could see different highlights and lowlights in it, you know, and it worked a treat. One of my wife's favourite builds of mine is that little Boot Hill Express. She does love it. So much so that it is in her cabinet. You know, she's like, yeah, that's mine. I'm having that. It's a bit like the Black Pearl. That's going to be hers. The, what's his name? The Black Coach, the Warhammer Black Coach. It's like, yeah, she bought that. Can you build this for me? Yes, Fox. My missus did go in a GW store and purchase a Warhammer kit for herself. I'm not going to build it, but yeah. But she saw it, she liked it, and thought, yeah, I like that. I want that. So, yeah. She was like, would you mind building this for me? And I was like, squee. Yeah. Because straight away, I'm just thinking of all the different paint effects that can go into that build. So we've got a bit of that going on. Let's clean my brush of all the light colours. We'll come back with a bit of green. Pick out some of them bags and tarps. It's not going to be all one green colour because you've got different tarps there and different bags under them. But we'll do a couple of the colours just to see what a bit of contrast looks like on there. Also, it makes me remember to do that other pack that's sitting there talking to me going, yeah, you've forgotten me, ain't you, Cole? Which I had, to be honest. Put that in there. It's the dirtiest, scuzziest water I know, but it just gets excess paint off there and then they'll be cleaned afterwards. It's over there. Everyone's saying good night to Athol. He says time for his pain relief, coffee and bed. Good show as usual. Night all. Thank you very much for the feedback. I still am incredibly nervous doing the solo stuff. I don't know why. I still am inwardly because, yeah, it's for me because I can go a little bit off piste and ramble and stuff, you know, and I'm always conscious that on my streams I have either Festa, I have Fox and Dave, and 9 times out of 10 Fox will divert me back or bring me back off my tangent. But when I'm doing solo, I haven't got that safety valve. So if I do go off a little bit on a ramble, let me know. And yeah, I'll come back. But only nerves. I just get nervous, so I have to keep rambling just for my own sanity. There you go, a little bit of green. Just swirly, swirly. All I'm interested in is getting this down as a generic green. US Army Olive Drab, in case you wonder. It's from the Life Colour Olive Drab series. Recommended by my good man Panzer. Says you might find this set really useful with that Sherman you're going to do. And I must admit, Pans, I have. It has come in handy, especially for the tonal changes on the tank itself. You know, different bits of different shades of green. There's various fades of olive drab in there. So I've used both of them, you know, because some areas might be more faded than others. And really is a good set, folks. It's available from eModels, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs there. See what I did? But it is really a good set. It's a set of 6 paints. To me, a size bottles. And they brush really well. They go through the airbrush really well. And yeah, you can't go wrong with them. So that's another pack of the packy kind there. That'll go on top of the tank. We'll have loads of packs on there. That's a bit of a tarp there. What's underneath there? Looks like some kind of bag of some kind under there. Or leather strap on it. Well, we can do one, we can go over the whole lot with green, and then the top one I'm going to do the faded olive drab. Carl, come on. There you go. Just tuck that up underneath there, like so. Then do a bit more around here. And again, I can come back then with all the straps and the detail stuff later on with me detail stuff, because there's a bit of old rope there, see it? You know, so that's all got to be done in ropey colour. And yeah, so detail with just these little bits is great. Apologies for me shaking, I can't stop that, but it'll pass. There you go. But you know, you've even got the ropes on the end there of the case. Just brings these little boxes alive, and I love that about these little sets. It's that little bit of detail makes a huge difference, doesn't it? You're doing a fantabulous job. Don't sweat it. You've got it nailed. Yeah, you know what I'm like. I spoke to him about it last week after the frolic, you know, and he was like, you know, how are you finding the solo stuff? And I was still, I think he was surprised that I still struggle with it, you know. Just me, it's just my own, as PJ refers to it, your inner paranoias are getting the better of you. And yeah, and he means that really, really well, folks, as well. It's not a dig or anything like that. But I can inwardly convince myself not to do something. And yeah. And it is that you get a bit of a wobble and you're like, yeah, I can't face it tonight. I did it the last time. I was up for doing the show, and then I got this immense bout of stage fright where I was backwards and forwards being ill because I'd got myself so worked up. And it's like, it's daft, isn't it? But it's just me. So I couldn't do the show because I wasn't in a fit state of mind to do it. I got myself so worked up over it. Whereas tonight, I went and had a power nap. And literally 10 minutes before I went on air, my alarm went off. I've come down, you know, obviously, you know, bathroom visit, cleaned your teeth, all of that gubbins. And then fired up a brew and literally came in, fired it up, and I had 5 minutes to go. So I didn't have time to think about it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So, yeah, rather than me sit and brood on it all afternoon and get myself proper pacing up and down the hallway, I went for that option today, and it seems to have worked for me. It's daft, you know. I don't know whether other live streamers have a similar set of situations where they get nervous. I don't know, but I do. Even now on Monday eModels show, when the four of us are on, I still turn up and I'm quite meek and mellow, you know, because I'm a bit edgy, because much to the rest of the team's annoyance, I still refer to myself as the newbie. And they're like, dude, you've been doing it long enough now. But you do feel like the new kid on the block still, and I get a bit nervous. Am I performing to the standard that the rest of the team are? Am I bringing anything to the eModels table? Are my builds of the quality that eModels should expect? And perhaps it's a good thing to have these types of self-doubt, but it drives the rest of the team nuts. You know, because, yeah, even James reaches out from eModels and goes, dude, come on, stop beating yourself up. Yeah, I know. Terrible, when I. Does it keep you feeling, you know, does it keep you a little bit more human thinking like that? You know, you don't get a sense of overblown self-importance, do you? You know, so Panzer says, I've quite a few of their effects sets and highly recommend. And they are, I mean, excuse me, I bought a couple of their car sets for engine bays, metal work, you know, brasses, metallic, you know, for finishing off engine bays in cars, because I've got the big 1/8 scale E-type Jag that I'm going to be doing. So I got the first life colour set that I owned for that reason. And again, you know, got chatting about the 1/16 Sherman, because I hadn't ordered it then, you know, as an eModels build. I was mulling it over, picking Panzer's brain and me self-doubt and all of that lot. Have I got the skill to do a 1/16 tank? And the usual. And then I was sort of saying to him, paint sets, you know, what would you look at? What would you, if you was doing the build tomorrow, what would you go out and buy yourself? And that was it. And we had a good hour or so conversation on different specs and places that you can see different tank builds, and you know, museums, go on their site and look at the tank museum. And so it was a good informative session like that. And I came away from that with so much information on different paint suppliers, that set will work well for this, that set will work well for that, and yeah. So I found it quite interesting, to be honest with you. These little bottle carriers, would they have been khaki or would they have been just standard green? A bit of research on them. So is that all the green done there? Turk, I do believe, has a green shirt on, so we'll have a bit of that. So I'll do a bit of Turk. I'll put a base colour down on these fez as well, I think, because, yeah, we all kind of want to see a bit of fezzy fun, don't we? Retro Rabbit is in, saying hello. Hello, Retro. How you doing, mate? Lovely to see you, mate. Nice to see you. All of that. And we'll just put a little bit of base green on the back here. Work our way round. Let's use a bit off the lid there, because that does deposit a slightly bit of thicker paint. Billy says the rust colours are the best I've found. They are essentially liquid talent. Oh, really? I'll have a look for that. The life colour rust set. Is that, like you say, rust effects type set? Yeah, I suppose it would be. Clues in the name, Carl, wouldn't it? Yeah, moving on. I forget I did that. Yeah. I'll have a look for that, because I do like these paints. I really do. They have really come into their own for this build, just because I wanted to have a little bit of tonal change in the Sherman, but not too heavy. And yeah, even to the point where I had blended a couple of their faded khakis together and had transitional shades in between, and they really did blend well. And yeah, came in really useful for that. So yeah, good shout, Pans. It really got me out of a dilemma as to what paint to go for this, because it was primed with a regular UMP olive drab primer over a red oxide, so that I could start exposing a little bit of that. The green, these olive drabs, you know, I was, because I'd never sprayed live colour through an airbrush, but it went through really well. And yeah, the colour's just there. It's not an all or nothing paint. You know, if you missed it, it gives you a lighter tone. It does what it says on the tin. I found it didn't pull anywhere. It just literally did what it should. And you can't ask more from a paint, can you? because we've all had it where certain paints like to puddle or whatever, you know. Yeah, these didn't. They just went straight in. So I'll just wash this green on here for now. Not worried about the black showing through. I want that. I want that to show through because I can use that for shadow colours, darker shades and things as I progress along doing these figures. So I don't mind that at all at this stage. This is just literally, it's almost like an olive wash. Just put a bit of colour on it, just so that when I photograph this later and shove them in the vehicle. And breathe. There you go. When I shove them in the vehicle, I can just get a bit of colour change on them. Just thinking out loud there with my app breathes, but it helps me. A little bit underneath the armpit. And this little figure, actually, when I created it, the arms were down beside him, but I didn't like that. I wanted him leaning on the turret, so I had to chop his arm up and then drip a bit of liquid resin in there and cure that. And it kind of gave me this rather different pose for this figure. Come on, Edward. Half an hour. You can do it. So we've got a bit of that going on. Okay, so let's give that a clean off. I'm going to worry about my cans at the moment. I'll do them later. That'll be khaki on there. On that big old bit of stowage. So I might get a bit of wood effect done on them. Start that off. Bring him in so we can see him and that. He's done over there. I'm happy with him for the minute. Okie dokie. Let's have a look at our Balls t-shirt. See what we got there. Bring me brush off. Let's just have a little looky-loo a minute and see what colour that was, because I've got it in my favourites. There's a picture, because I can't remember whether it was light green or whether it was a grey. Come on, where are you? If not, I'll just do his jacket and leave his t-shirt for tonight until I can find the appropriate photo. Can't be far, can't be this far back. Sorry about the off shot there, folks. I'm just trying to find my picture of Oddball. Probably been easier to Google it on my phone, to be honest with you. Let's do that, Carl. Just so that I can get a reminder of his uniform. Oddball. Kelly's Heroes. There you go. Let's see whether we can get a colour. Oh yeah, khaki. No worries. Happy days. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was a grey. Probably because the photo I had was black and white, you pilch. Yeah. Very light khaki. Okay. That's that done. Let's have a look to see what we can come up with. This flying helmet for a start. Oh, do we go straight in with Snakebite and see what it looks like? Because if I'm not happy with it, I can always go back and do different tones to bring it down. But I just want to check just to see whether this will work on its own. Just bring it over and let it do its thing. And once it's dry, I'll begin to see. Because I want the different light and dark shaded areas to be seen. That's the plan. It might work, it might not. It might not be dark enough, but perhaps with multiple layers it will work quite nicely. Certainly seems to be on the back there. We'll drop a little bit over the front of his canister, comes round there, almost shaped like one of those really bad hair transplants you see on an Hollywood actor. You know the one. It comes down and around right over the front of his lugs and then down the way. I can work with it, probably go over it with a bit of Rhinox finned as well, just to give it a bit of thickness in the brown. But as its initial contrast between the face and his helmet, sounded wrong, it just lets me get an idea of what I'm looking at, because I can then come back, highlight and low light this as much as I choose. But initially, it's just to let me see the difference. Because then things like the ear pads, I can come and detail them up and give them a change as to what they should be from the film. So I'm not fussed about that. It's just to get a little bit of colour on him, just so that I can see what I'm looking at. That's the theory. Yeah, and then we can start adding, and yeah, I'll live with that for a minute. What have we got in the chat there? Oh, Frog Snacks had to try 4 times to get YT to load on the telly. Oh, really? Rust and Dust says Phillies. I'll have a look for that. Saw Uncle Night Shift user, but my first attempt. Copy him ended up with my best ever Rusty track so far. Yeah, the guy's just a talent god, isn't he? Let's be honest. Absolute brilliant. I love what he does. Every now and then you come across the channel or a modeler that you hold in high standard, and yeah, he's up there. He really is unbelievably talented. And he's got the best YouTube hosting voice ever, my friends. Yeah, if you're not sure who we're on about, it's a fella called Night Shift on YouTube, folks. Google him. Go and give him a visit. Absolute legend. Does some beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, this could have multiple layers of this on there, just to bring different details out. And then I shall go over and dry brush a few areas. I just want, at the end of today, to have different colours on things, just so that I can try and get the Sherman to talk to me, because that's key in how I do my stuff. I like to be able to talk to me so that I know I'm going in a direction I'm going to be happy with. And I'm not at that stage with her at the moment. She's had her base colours put down on the tank. Everything looks a little too neat and cartoony, I know. But it's just to get these things at a stage where I can bring it all together and then start blending everything so that it just looks right. For me, anyway. There's more than one way to do this, but this works for me. Because the Sherman itself, I store in its actual model box between shows, just to protect it from the dust and me. Because when I'm moving about in here, I do bump into things and I don't want to damage the build. But she'll spend 48 hours out between now and Wednesday next to me so that she can talk to me with ease on it. Just so that I can see if I'm happy with what I'm doing, whether anything needs to change, whether I need to look at colour changes on a few areas, whether I need to go for deeper greens or browns on clothing and stowage and things. It just lets me see that I'm going in a way that it survives. It's got... With the build, I want it to survive the 2-foot test. You know, I know where it's going to be stored. It's underneath the counter, Yeah. But I want people, when they go into eModels, to see it and be drawn in a little bit. What's that under there? Oh, what's that bit? Oh, where did that come from? Where does that go? And it just lets them have a look around it and perhaps garners an interest, because it could be someone out there that wants to do one of these. that is never built in that scale. I certainly have learnt a hell of a lot, more so where all my 35th armour that I'm currently doing and I've built recently has got to the base colours and decal stage only. And they're all been stored in a refill box ready for when I come back to weather them all. So doing this has opened my eyes a little bit, because in 35th scale, I've got old man vision. And I don't always see in that scale what you see in 16th. So I've come away with a wealth of knowledge that I didn't have before, where certain welds are on the tank hull or certain details are visible in 16th that I don't normally stick out and see even. And that for me, as a builder, as I'm doing all of this, has been a massive eye-opener. And I am doing a sister build. She's just off shot here. Let's just grab her and just see what I mean. This is a little sherman I built a while back. Excuse the dust. Let's give her a dust off, actually, Cole, because, yeah. There you go. Let's take that off of there. This is going to be my little sister build. So what I'm doing with this is I'm going to go back. I'm going to open up tanks. I'm going to put a little tiny old ball in there. I'm going to do stowage in 35th and add that to it. This is going to be my little keepsake from the eModels build. So I'm going to hand paint all the face on there, the mouth and all of that lot, and pretty much mirror in 35th what I've done for this build. And it just gives me a little keepsake of the 16th build. All my tanks, including the Tiger that I'm currently doing, they'll all get to that initial first layer of paint for their paint schemes. And then I will stop the build, go on and put together my next tank, and so on. And then I'll have loads of tanks that I can sit and weather, and loads of different bios that I can use. So that's the plan anyway. And it seems, you know, it works for me at the end of the day. And also, see, between now and then, I can learn different techniques, weathering techniques, because I'm not the world's greatest weatherer. I'll have a go, but there's people out there that are far better at it than I am. Let's just put that under there like that. There you go. I can now hold him and not get my big old paw prints on there. Slightly darker for the glove. But I can then come back, once this is all gone off, I can dry brush the glove and put a bit more tonal change in there. But for the moment, I just want it slightly different than the rest of Oddball. Try not to shake. It's getting a bit difficult. So what are we now? Yeah, I'll come off at 11 because I'm beginning to get a bit too shaky in a few places. We'll see how we go for the next 15 minutes. There you go. There's a bit of gloveliness. Lovely, glovely. See what I did? And go. So that gives me a slightly darker glove. See? But just in them short steps already, you can see where I'm going with the jacket. That gives me all the tonal changes I want, and then I can come in and I can pick out little areas now with blended down browns and things, just to highlight a few edges and a few wear marks. But just in that simple step is just enough to begin to start getting the effect. And then obviously his glove is a darker shade, see, so I'll probably come back on his helmet and do his ear pads in that shade just to differentiate them. I'll do that now, actually, just to give them a little tonal change. Let's grab me hand. Just pick them out. Sorry, I'm quiet. I'm just trying to hold my breath to stop twitching. Like so. Just start picking it out. Just give it a slightly different colour. So once that dries, that'll start blending down then, which is what I want. have you a bit of that. And it's actually quite poignant when you think about it, because we lost Donald Sutherland this year. Sadly no longer with us, and sitting here doing this, it's like, for us, for our generation, Kelly's Hero, it's just one of them iconic films, isn't it? And yeah, it's like Oddball's no longer here, and it's like, yeah. And it was funny, like the news, when they was all covering the loss of Donald Sutherland, were all going, oh, the Hunger Games, you know, he's best known for that. And it's like, no, he's Oddball. Oddball, that's it. It's a bit like Christopher Reeve when he passed. It's like Superman, you know, Christopher Reeve, Superman. So, yeah. Put a little bit of that back on there, around the cuff of the glove. Have you some of that, my son? It's actually looking quite nice. I don't know what it's coming out like on your cameras, your end, folks, but certainly underneath the lighting in here, it's beginning, now that it's drying, you're getting texture. You can see that on the back of his jacket. You see it? Texture. Where the contrast paint has just gone in. See that? Look at that. Oh, all day long in it, folks. What's with the negative waves, man? It's where he goes, he's a guru, you know. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'll stop that now. So that's a bit of Oddball goodness. So let's just clean me brush off. And what colour is that? That's Wildwood. Let's have a look at some of the packing cases, actually, and see what the Wildwood does on them. Well, just give that a shaky box. J. Leon 723 says the perfect example of a vignette is Festa's Volkswagen Beetle abandoned by a wall and a bit of tarpaulin draped over it. Yes, I must get Ringo out and finish him. Keep meaning to, because I've only got to do me grass and me leaf scatter, and then I can put the video up, see, of Ringo. But yes, Leon, yeah, that's a perfect example, mate. The vignette is not much more larger than the model itself, mate, whereas the street scene, I don't know whether you've seen that, but the street scene that I'm doing on the Wednesday eModel shows for the mini art is, yeah, more of a diorama type thing. You know, it's quite a large diorama in itself, the cobbled street scene, see, so yeah. Whereas the Ringo build is a lot more compact. But yeah, just it may sound really strange, but I film all my work as I'm doing it. I'm filming tonight. Whilst we're on air here, I've got the camera going and I'm recording all of this, and this all goes on my hard drive as raw footage. PJ was asking me about the street scene that I'm doing for the mini art. He said, have you been filming it? And I was like, yeah. I said, you'll be getting a video on the milk truck build and paint. You'll be getting one on the beer truck, the figures. I said, then you'll get a video which is start to finish, the build, the creating of the diorama, and then going in doing all the bricks and everything. So, because it has garnered quite a bit of interest, that build, which has really surprised me, because I didn't think it would, if I'm honest. But it seems to have really attracted quite a bit of interest, and I'm really happy about it, because that's the type of work that I really do have fun doing. And I do shiny and things like that, don't get me wrong, but I struggle more and more to achieve the results that I would like with it because of, you know, various reasons. So I'm moving away from it, probably not permanently. I will do the odd shiny build, but I kind of have gotten more into going back to weathering things and doing little vignettes and stuff like that. And I'm thinking of doing them. And then maybe in the future, you know, I might sit there and go, oh, my channel has reached a milestone. I'm giving away a build. There you go. You know, you've won yourself a Ringo or something like that. You know, I might just give a build away, you know. So just garners a bit of interest, and that's, yeah. So I've only got so much room. before I run out of space. But my interest has already happened. I've done the build, I've done the work, and I've had the fun doing it. So yeah. And I just seem to feel more relaxed doing it. It's like this, you know, doing all these little bits of stowage and just starting bringing it to life. I find really quite therapeutic and interesting. And when I was doing the street scene there, just sitting there, carving bricks, mapping out the cobblestone road, so therapeutic because you sit there late at night with a cup of coffee, doing your thing. You know, and I started it on the live stream. And Fox was surprised because, you know, like 15 minutes I'd gone from having it reasonably drawn out on the diode to being lined out and the carving started. And he was quite surprised how quick the process is. Yeah, once you've done it a few times, you can really do knock these results out quite quickly. So all I'm doing is almost dry brushing this contrast on. Not really what you should use contrasts like. You know, you're supposed to slather them on and let them pull and find recesses and all of that lot. But I've got the contrast range, but I don't actually use them as contrast. 90% of the time, I use them as glazes. Or, on situations like this, I just dry brush them on. Because they just give me a tonal change that I can control just by multiple layers. But it gives me a little packing case, you know. And as that dries, you'll start getting all the different tonal changes coming through, see? So where I left the black parts and just splurged colour in the middle when it looked a bit cartoony, as it dries, it'll start becoming a bit more wooden. So there you go. And then I can go back at a later time and maybe dry brush a few edges with a bit of the original base colour, just to bring it back. What have we got? Bill says, evening, folks. I'm just guest who's just woke up. Oh, dear. Panzer says, Guru or Gnu? Rod says, it looks great. Guru says, I see what you did there. Because, yeah, I did a butcher's apron on the for the Wednesday show, and he was like, dude, how did you do that? And it's pretty much multiple layers of these, just darker areas in some places and lighter areas in other. It does give you a quite a nice effect, which I don't mind. No, it just bit of highlight, bit of dark. But use the underlying texture as well. Where I've got wood grain, I'll go with the wood grain, just so that the contrast paint actually finds the grooves of the wood. These do dry very rapidly, so any excess will leach off, and it'll just leave you with wood grain where you want it. See, it just starts putting it in those little nooks and crannies, and then you can go over it with a cotton bud if you want. Get rid of what you don't want. And it works for me. And this is just literally wildwood going over Ballor Brown on this. That's all it is. And then obviously you've got Zandri Dust and Taillight Ochre. Just gives you a little bit of a tonal change. You can put as much of this on or as little as you want. And then just rub it into the side of the case. Some areas are going to be lighter, some areas are going to be darker. Especially if it's had stuff stacked on top of it and been thrown about a bit on the tank. You'll have bits that have been gouged off the edges of the wood that might have exposed the underlying wood that might be a slight different shade. And this is where you can go back in and detail all of that and just bring that to life. So this won't be the final finished result on here. This is just the start. It just lets me see how this dries down. Put a little bit down there, and then I'll go with a grain now on these, just to start rubbing that in. Very, very tiny amount going on this, because again, you want to see the different colours underneath. Just put that in there. I don't mind that it leaches through on the pad, because this is my spare pad in there that is The one that all these paints get slung on the wet palette with. There you go. Smudge that on there, Cole. Come back, do the same that side. And this will dry up quite nicely, as I said, and will leave me, I think, with a slightly faded packing case. See that? And it works for me. And then once you've got it and detailed the straps and stuff like that, you might think, oh, they might have gouged that. So then I'll just lightly dry brush over the edge with a bit of the base layer, come in, do the ropes and all of that. That's it. That'll be a packing case done. So we'll just finish this one off. How are we doing? Yeah, we'll finish this one off. And then we'll look at saying our goodbyes. I would say is thanks for all of you that have come in and kept me company tonight. It does mean a lot. It really does. You know, and I do enjoy doing these, but I do need to just get me confidence up to keep doing them. And it's silly, I know. But it really does help me when you're all chatting to me there in the chat and keeping me mind off of me and my paranoias, so to speak. It just lets me carry on and do these shows and just, yeah, give you a little bit of entertainment in the meantime, if that's what this is. Right, let's just clean me brush and brushness off. And then we'll show what we've done tonight, which isn't really an awful lot, to be honest with you. So sorry about that, my inane rambling, but we have made a start. Clean the rest of that off there with me brush cleaners and that, but for the moment, to save you having to listen to my paint jar of annoyance, let's just pop that off of there and sling that up there for a minute. What have we done then? We've started some packing cases. I'm getting them all going. Obviously, we've started a bit of uniform goodness there, a little bit of detail started. So we got him. We got some more bags and packs. We got this geezer, looking rather pensive with his designer stubble showing through his 5 o'clock shadow there. So we got a bit of that, and we've started oddball, folks. So as you can see, just that short little session has, I think, started just bringing him out enough. A little bit of a change there with the ear pad colour. Let's just get that. Yeah, so got a bit of tonal change there, but it's the jacket that's the key, because yeah, literally just a couple of coats of that has just started to bring that out. All you're doing is you're staining the underlying colour with it, and then obviously the glove is done in a darker contrast paint just to give that a slightly different colour. And then we'll come back and we'll do his khaki t-shirt, and I shall use the life colour khaki. I shall thin it right down with Lamia medium or something like that and make it a glaze so that I can glaze it over so you'll see the dark and the light differences showing through, a bit like the jacket there. Okay, and then we'll detail Oddball up with his beard and all of that lot on a later show. Right, so there you go, folks. That's me done for the night. Hopefully you're enjoying the progress being made. It's slow but sure. Like I say, I can sit and put some of these figures in the tank and take a couple of pictures and upload it, and then I can let her sit there and talk to me for a few days so that we can come back then and we can start finagling this and getting it all a little bit more sexy for you. Philly says, best way to look at it, Carl, we're here to watch. If not, we wouldn't still be here watching. I know, mate, but I have this inane fear that no one's going to turn up, mate. It's just me. You know, despite the fact that many people bust my brain, I still have that in me where I just think, yeah. Anders says, nearly midnight here. Time really flew. Great to watch you, mate. Oh, thank you very much, Anders. We're coming off air now. So a big thanks from the bottom of my dear old heart for you all that have come in and kept me company. Stay safe and well. And me and Fox will be back Wednesday on this channel for the Wednesday Workbench Live for eModels. I'll be carried on with my mini art diorama, and Fox will be painting some more gold and chipping and all of that lot on his Lord Croak, folks. So we look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, go and pop over to eModels and have a little look, folks, because this is for them. Have a little looky-loo and something might take your fancy. Remember, slap it in your basket. It ain't yours till you check it out. And also, big thanks for the crew to the crew at eModels for all their ongoing support as well. See you later, folks. Bye-bye for now. Look at it.